Hello and welcome to the Fit News Podcast. I am your host, Jen Shaver, and joining me today is Marie Jarrett. Marie is a trusted and compassionate functional medicine nutritionist who works at the Forbes Clinic in Harley Street, London, and is also works worldwide with private clients. Marie helps women address midlife hormonal imbalances and symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. With her extensive expertise in nutrition and health, she understands the intricate connections between disease, chronic health issues, and the impact of nutrition and lifestyle. Through her remote consultations, Marie has assisted individuals worldwide, making a remarkable difference in the lives of individuals grappling with midlife hormonal imbalances and chronic illnesses. Marie is also a returning guest to the Fit News Podcast. So excited to have you back today, Marie.
Oh, thank you for inviting me on again, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we have some great things to chat about today because we are going to get into two big things. And the first one of those is going to be how the old ways of losing weight no longer work in midlife and what to do instead. So, because I know that this is a challenge for many women, and a lot of them are like, oh, I've got this extra 10, 15, 20 pounds. Where did it come from? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just go back to doing what I used to do, right?
Yeah,
And we
absolutely.
know that it doesn't work. So let's first address, what does that mean? What are women doing that they used to do that's no longer working?
Okay, well, they're starving themselves basically, which used to work for us in the olden days. When we were young, we could starve ourselves. We
Mhm.
could eat a lettuce leaf and we'd be fine. We'd be fine all day because our hormones were relatively healthy. We could keep our hormones balanced even without too many calories. And we'd lose weight, of course. We'd be able to crush
Mhm.
it at the gym as well, which helped, which we can't do that now. And unfortunately, and I know this because I was a bulimic at one time. I had terrible bulimia, and I was a junk food addict. So I was like um, eating a lot of junk food, and then I was starving myself, and I was purging. So
Mhm.
it was a horrible cycle. But nevertheless, I'm finding that when I speak to clients now, or prospective clients, or just women
Right.
in general, that they are trying to do the old way of doing it, which is starving themselves, reducing calories,
Right.
missing meals, missing breakfast, and just trying to lose weight that way. But unfortunately, it's rebounding, it's not working for them, and they are actually putting on weight, especially around the middle,
Yeah.
because of that. Because when you starve yourself, Jen, you're creating high cortisol, a lot of stress in your body, and of course, cortisol, the stress hormone, will not allow you to lose weight because you are then in survival mode. In
Mm.
survival mode, the body wants to hold on to weight,
Yeah.
hold on to that fat around the middle to fight that figurative saber-toothed tiger. Okay. So it's not a time for losing weight. And if we put our bodies under stress like that, by starving ourselves, counting calories, and reducing our food intake, unfortunately, it's not going to have the effect that we want. We'll actually put on weight. And this
Mhm.
is something that surprised a lot of women when they
Right.
talk to me about it. They can't believe it, but it
Mhm.
happens,
Right.
sadly.
Well, along with, you also mentioned, along with like the soul crushing workouts, right? I think I have to go to the gym. I have to do these, pedal to the metal workout every single time, all this cardio, because that's how we burn the calories, right? And
Yeah.
when we couple that with that restrictive calorie intake,
Mm.
it's detrimental.
Absolutely, it is detrimental. I mean, at one time this would have worked for us, but in midlife, everything changes, everything changes. And
Mhm.
so those things simply don't work anymore. Crushing it at the gym, I mean, going to the gym and doing weights and things like that, fine, fantastic.
Mhm.
Cardio, unfortunately, unless you're doing something like HIIT, high intensity interval training for a very short time, which is actually beneficial. But if you're
Mhm.
doing CrossFit, if you're really crushing it and
Mhm.
exhausting yourself, you
These
are
boot camp
actually,
type classes.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. These boot
Yeah.
camp type classes, work really well for younger women. You know, they
Yeah.
gain a lot of benefit from it. But
Yes.
us midlife women, we've got to take it easier. Otherwise, we're just going to put the weight on, unfortunately. And
Mhm.
it comes as a shock for most women to find this out in midlife.
Yeah. Yeah. And neither one of us are um, saying that you have to be a wallflower, right? I mean, but what we are proposing is changing the way that you view exercise and the exercises that you're doing in midlife.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't, sitting down and just not doing any sort of exercise is totally counterproductive, of course, but we
Right.
need to be moving. We need to be moving as often as we can.
Yeah.
Okay, especially when we have sedentary jobs, sat behind computers, we need to get up and we need to move. And just that movement alone, whatever the movement is going to
Right.
be beneficial for us, So we don't have to be crushing it at the gym all the time, just a simple walk, or maybe just do some freehand exercises at home, maybe some resistance training, like a few
Right.
push-ups, a few squats, things like that for, 10-minute bursts is
Right.
what I do in the
Hmm.
day. 3 10-minute bursts. And that's what I do because that's
Right.
what I have time for, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that does help to keep the fat off, and it works very well. So no,
Hmm.
we don't have to be wallflowers.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
There was a study that recently came out. I'm going to paraphrase it. Something about doing 10 squats every 45 minutes, 8 times during your day was
Yeah.
more beneficial than going on one 30-minute walk.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw that study as well. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it looks like little and often seems to be
Hmm.
the key, and
Hmm.
just not overdoing it,
Right.
just keeping everything in perspective. We don't have to kill ourselves, we don't have to put ourselves through that in order to lose weight and
Right.
be healthy.
Right. And I think that's the key right there was the be healthy, right? Because our bodies are changing as we age. And so they're not going to look like our 20-year-old body. But how do we get it to at least be healthy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And hormonal balance is the key. It is
Mm.
really the key. I mean, we're very much into intermittent fasting these days as well, which is
Mhm.
great. It's
Mhm.
absolutely fantastic for weight loss, but only if we do it correctly. And women aren't, unfortunately. They're
Mhm.
becoming quite obsessive. And I know this because I used to be obsessive myself. I
Yeah.
was I was a bulimic at one time, and I was very obsessive about exercise, diets and things like that. And
Right.
if you intermittently fast for too much, the eating window is too small. Again,
Hmm.
you're going to put your body under stress. So I'm seeing this happen as well. But certainly, keeping hormones balanced is key, and you're not
Hmm.
going to do that by having your body in stress mode, in survival mode,
Hmm.
because then hormones are impossible to balance. Cortisol, the stress hormone, will be too high. And when that's too high, it throws everything all out of balance. It's impossible to balance your hormones when we are in this stress mode. So, we have to be mindful of that, Jen.
Yeah. And so let's talk about what are you seeing women do when it comes to intermittent fasting that is maybe creating issues for them.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really become a craze and fantastic. I love intermittent fasting, but it really has to be done in the correct way.
Hmm.
A lot of the research surrounding intermittent fasting has been done on obese men, not so much women. And so, what applies to a man does not apply to a woman necessarily,
Right.
certainly not to a woman in midlife.
Hmm.
So what women come to me and they will say things like, Marie, I've been intermittently fasting, but I am gaining weight. I'm actually gaining weight. My moods have changed. I'm getting very low mood. I'm getting
Right.
depressed. I'm getting anxious. I'm not sleeping well. What's going on? And then when I have a look at exactly what they're doing, I'm finding that they're missing breakfast.
Hmm.
Breakfast is so key. It's, a high protein breakfast
Yeah.
is so key. But what they're doing is they're perhaps not having breakfast and not eating until lunch, and then maybe breaking their fast with fruit only, not
Oh,
high protein lunch even. And, they're cutting calories to such restrictive calories that their body is in stress mode. Now, when this happens, unfortunately, autophagy, which is where the cells renew, and it's a
mhm,
cleansing process where the body renews itself and cleans out rubbish and repairs itself, is not going to happen
right.
when your body is in stress mode. Unfortunately, autophagy won't happen. So what you're actually trying to achieve is is not happening.
It's backfiring.
It's backfiring
Yeah.
absolutely because of trying to just do too much as far
Mhm.
as, pushing yourself too hard and restricting those calories. It simply doesn't work. And of course, this might not be, landing very well with some people who are achieving really good results with their intermittent fast. If you are, then that's great.
But it's only going to last for so long
Yeah, absolutely.
if
We
you're
are.
doing it wrong.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're doing it, I mean, some people are more metabolically balanced, as I call it. So they
Hmm.
are healthier, they can get away with it, and they might well get results,
Hmm.
especially if they have, a higher body weight. If there's, for the subjects in the test studies, the obese people, the intermittent fasting was serving them quite well because it
Hmm.
was acting like, and instead of exercising, the fasting was in replacement of to
Okay.
exercise. So it
Okay.
was working quite well and they were
Right.
losing body fat. But unfortunately for us, people with who don't have extreme weight problems, it may
Right.
not, it may totally rebound.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, oftentimes when we think about midlife and we think about midlife hormones, right? We're
Mm,
thinking about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone,
mm.
but there's so much more to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much more to it, and especially in perimenopause,
Hmm.
estrogen. I see a lot of women who have been put on HRT, hormone replacement, which is all well and good for certain women, but they've been put on HRT maybe in perimenopause when they're still cycling, so they
Hmm.
are already producing their own estrogen.
Hmm.
Um, which means that if they are put on yet more estrogen, it's very likely they could become estrogen dominant. And I'm seeing this quite often,
Hmm.
even on women without hormone therapy. So the reason for this is because, as well as because hormones are actually coming down in midlife,
Hmm.
unfortunately, progesterone reduces, it goes down quicker than estrogen.
Yeah.
So it immediately leaves us in this state of hormonal imbalance where we have estrogen dominance.
Hmm.
Okay, so even when estrogen is coming down, it can still be dominant relative to progesterone. And quite often this is because of the hormone cortisol. Okay, because cortisol and progesterone have this relationship where when cortisol is high, progesterone is low. It has
Hmm.
that inverse relationship, if you like. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's really, really important to, again, address that stress issue. And stress comes in many forms. It's not just emotional stress. We have physical stress. Like I say, overtraining is one of them.
Hmm.
Injuries, another, pain, and things like that. That's an example of physical stress. And there's emotional stress. We know what that's like. Mental stress, working too hard. And there's also chemical stress. So this could be toxins, whether they're coming from inside the body or outside the body, is
Right.
causing a stress to your body. And this is producing cortisol. And because of that high cortisol, and we all are suffering from this, unfortunately,
Yeah.
in this Western world. So it's very, very difficult. We are immediately then out of balance with our hormones.
Yeah.
Estrogen will naturally be higher because progesterone is lower. And another hormone as well comes into play with, which is insulin. If we are on a very ultra processed food diet, we
Hmm.
are going to be having higher insulin levels. The higher our insulin levels, the more estrogen we are going to actually produce from our ovaries and from our fat tissue. Okay, so there's an enzyme called aromatase, which sits in the fat tissue, which
Mhm.
converts our testosterone, which is another very, very important hormone in midlife. It
Mhm.
converts testosterone back into estrogen again. So we're, we're increasing that picture of estrogen dominance, unfortunately, if we have a high insulin diet, which is a high grain, high carb diet.
Mhm.
That's not going to be benefiting us at all. So, as you can see, all these hormones play together in a
Right.
sort of a nice symphony, if you like, a nice, when the orchestra's playing well, it sounds harmonious, doesn't it? But as soon as
Right.
someone's out of key, everything just goes awry and it becomes it becomes unbearable to listen to. And it's the same with our hormones.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when one goes out of sync, then the whole cascade falls into mayhem, as it were. So, and that's when
Right.
we begin to experience these horrible symptoms of midlife hormonal imbalance, such as fatigue, low
Mhm.
mood, sleep issues, weight issues, the
Mhm.
inability to lose weight, and things like that, and more, so many more symptoms
And those can
associated.
all be attributed to estrogen dominance.
They can be attributed to estrogen dominance as
Hmm.
well as general hormonal imbalances
Okay.
across the board, because we don't have that
Hmm.
symphony playing well and sounding harmonious. We've got everything all upside down and inside out. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
yes, we are going to get those symptoms, which are going to be more prevalent in midlife because our hormones are so much more difficult to
Hmm.
balance.
And how would a woman know if she is experiencing estrogen dominance?
Okay, some of the classic symptoms would be things like menstrual irregularities, perhaps
Hmm.
very heavy periods,
Hmm.
painful periods, um, heavy breasts, painful breasts, um, fibrocystic breasts, and things like that, migraines, uh, low mood, energy deficits of feeling really
Hmm.
fatigued all the time. And again, having that weight that doesn't shift, all these are signs of estrogen dominance,
Hmm.
which often occurs in perimenopause, and some postmenopausal women have it as well.
And then there are some lifestyle adjustments you can make to help combat this estrogen dominance.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you suggest, for someone who maybe doesn't want to go the prescription route yet, but wants to make some lifestyle adjustments to address the estrogen dominance? What can you do to do that?
Okay, well, one of the first things to do is to address gut health,
Mm.
because the detoxification of estrogen is the key to keeping these hormones in balance as well.
Hmm.
So we want estrogen not to be too high. We
Hmm.
need to remove it from the body once it's served its purpose in the body, okay? And that is the job of the gut microbiome. So we need a healthy gut. So, in order to have a healthy gut and healthy detoxification, so that means a healthy liver as well, we need to be eating right. We need to be eating real food as opposed to processed, lots of processed food. Of course, once in a while is absolutely fine, but many of us are existing on this processed food all of the
Yeah.
time, and it's causing a lot of inflammation in the gut, causing constipation and issues like that, where you're going to get that recirculation of estrogen that's meant to be heading out will be reabsorbed back in. So you're going to be estrogen dominant just from
Mhm.
that alone. But
Right.
that can be easily rectified by just shifting to a what I call a whole food diet. Okay. And you don't have to be starving yourself. You don't have to be counting calories or anything like that. And you can be eating really, really well, but just eat real food. That
Right.
will address the gut and liver issue with regard to estrogen dominance. And then thereafter is just having meals, just eating. Have a
Hmm.
breakfast, even if you are intermittently fasting.
Hmm.
Start the fast earlier on the day before. Stop
Hmm.
eating earlier so that you
Hmm.
can get this 14 hours. And, when I say 14 hours, I really don't recommend much longer for
Hmm.
midlife women fasting. Some people can do 16, quite well, but I find that women who are more metabolically balanced
Hmm.
or able to fast for longer. But that high protein breakfast is key to blunt that high cortisol, which we naturally have in the morning. So we're in that catabolic state in the morning,
Hmm.
where catabolic means we're losing muscle. It's a stressed state when
Yeah.
cortisol is high. And quite often women will go to the gym, perhaps to do weights even, but they'll go on an empty stomach. They'll go in a fasting state when they're in this stress mode. So
Yeah.
they're trying to build muscle, but because it's a catabolic process, this
Yeah.
stress mode and high cortisol, they're actually depleting their muscle at the same time.
Right.
So it's not working out well. So yeah, high protein breakfast is another one, and just
Hmm.
eat regularly and eat real food. It's not rocket science, it's so easy. And keep moving throughout the day. And that movement, as I say, doesn't have to be strenuous. It can
Right.
just be doing anything, even housework.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's often so overlooked, just the daily movement that is just that we don't do because we're sitting at a desk now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I forget myself to move,
Yeah.
and I have to remind myself to move. And
Yeah.
they say that being sedentary is the new smoking, and I
Right.
can well believe that. It
Hmm.
really isn't good for us. When I say move, we can move for a few minutes, maybe even take a 5-minute break where we're just
Right.
moving and just moving about, perhaps
Hmm.
doing a few things, doing a bit of housework, doing some gentle exercise, anything just to move. And that is so, so important.
Yeah. Some other hormones that are also big during midlife. Let's talk about like the thyroid hormone. DHEA is also important during this time. Leptin, ghrelin. What, how are those impacted during midlife?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They're all impacted in one way or another because hormones they play together nicely.
Yeah.
They don't exist on their own. They can't function on their own. They function as a group of
Hmm.
hormones. And of course, when we are, going back to this starving ourselves and putting our bodies under stress, causing this high cortisol, we are actually depleting thyroid hormone
Hmm.
as well. So we could end up being hypothyroid through
Hmm.
this. Okay, so high cortisol tends to cause thyroid hormone to be low. And of course, this impacts our weight. We're talking about weight, just talking about weight alone, let
Hmm.
alone mood and other things like that. All these hormones play together. And of course, uh, with the hormones to do with blood sugar
Hmm.
regulation, as you've mentioned.
Yeah.
All these again play together. And if we are on a high insulin roller coaster all the time, these other hormones are going to be impacted, and we are not going to have that balance. It's all a matter of balance. And as I say, balancing is really not rocket science. It's really quite easy and straightforward.
Right.
It's a matter of just doing things, keeping things real and keeping
Hmm.
things basic and without worrying and without pushing ourselves too hard.
Hmm. Hmm. It's really about going back to the basics then and simplifying things rather than, hopping online looking for the quick fix.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so easy, and we take a lot of our what we know now about balancing hormones from women
Hmm.
who perhaps exist in other countries that are
Hmm.
not the Western world. They're less developed countries,
Right.
and these women they don't put on weight like we do. They don't have the mood issues. They don't have the fatigue issues that we do in midlife, and they
Yeah.
don't actually experience menopausal symptoms the way that we do. In fact, some
Right.
of them don't experience menopausal symptoms at all. So if
Wow.
we have a look, if we take a look at what they are doing,
Right.
we can see that they are eating a more what I call a more native diet. They're
Yeah.
not popping down to McDonald's every every
Yeah.
lunchtime or whatever. And they're eating real food, whole foods, and they are moving more, of
They're
course,
moving.
as women
Right.
are working and even working in the field, they're doing more manual work, and they're happier. And also they have a supportive community as well, so they don't have all this stress where we're sort
Right.
of like very competitive here in the West, aren't we? They're not like that. They're very supportive there. Whereas we are figuratively running away from that saber-toothed tiger all the time. As soon as we
Right.
get up out of bed,
Yeah.
we may have him in bed next to us, And then when we get up, we're fighting with the kids, and then we get stuck in traffic jams on the way to work, and then we get to work and we don't like the work environment. It's
Mhm.
stressful.
Right.
So we have this stress all the time, and it's obviously difficult. And I experience it as well. I'm not perfect in any way. I burn the candle at both ends, and I notice it with my with my lowered mood. My mood is lower, my waistline is bigger, and I have less energy when I do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, but go back to basics, as you say, Jen.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of these things, these processed foods, while they might seem like, oh, well, it's making my life easier, right? Because I don't have to do all this cooking or whatever, but
Yeah.
at what is the expense, right? And it's your health.
Yeah, it's causing a lot of inflammation, and you mentioned leptin and ghrelin earlier on as well. If we're constantly pushing ourselves to produce more insulin to try and deal with these sugars,
Yeah.
because much of these, what I call junk food is
Mhm.
refined carbohydrates, which is just sugar. We're
Right.
upsetting the balance of those hormones as well. And so it's not, it's unfortunately not a quick fix with regard to just reaching out. And we all do it. We all feel like sometimes we need a break. And once in a while is absolutely fine. But
Right.
to actually feed ourselves with this junk food, we're immediately causing inflammation, and
Yeah.
we're causing that poor gut health. And, we get things like constipation, and we get inflammation, bloating.
Mhm.
Our hormones are going to be that should be heading out of our body in a form of detox, if you like, are being reabsorbed back in, causing mayhem.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and it doesn't have to be all at once. I mean, if someone is so overwhelmed right now, start
Mm.
with one meal, right? I mean, start with breakfast, because it really is the most important meal of the day, because it's setting your day up for success. Start your day with a high protein breakfast and then
Yeah,
go from there, because really we can stack these good habits. They have a domino effect. And so if
yeah,
we just start with just one, right? And then we'll just continue with more and more, because you'll notice a difference. A lot of the women that I work with, when they do start to eat that high protein breakfast, like,
mm,
oh wow, I had so much more energy the rest of the day. I
yeah.
had so many fewer cravings the rest of the day. I didn't run for that pantry in the afternoon like I usually do. I mean, it's amazing what one meal
It is.
eaten correctly, right, can do.
Yeah. It's like it works like magic. And
Yeah.
I always challenge women who say, well, I don't have time to, you
Yeah.
know, I don't have time to cook, I don't have time to really do anything much. Start with, as you say, Jen, start with that high protein breakfast. It's a miracle what happens. And you feel more energetic, as you say, and you reduce those cravings. And you know what? You will find that if you continue in that mode, that the
Mhm.
weight will start to come off. You'll certainly lose that water weight anyway. When
Mhm.
the body's so toxic, it's holding on to water. One
Right.
thing I find that if you have a high protein breakfast, and also hydration, obviously, is another thing that's key as well, you'll start to lose that water weight, and you'll feel slimmer, even
Mhm.
if you haven't lost any fat yet. It's quite a miracle. Yeah. And a lot of people can't, understandably, they don't have time, but starting the day with that high protein breakfast is
Mhm.
wonderful. It's a wonderful start to the day, and you
Right.
will notice a difference, a big
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
within, I would say, maybe even a week to two
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. I would definitely agree, a week to 2 weeks. And you'll notice a difference in so many aspects in in
Yeah,
in your life.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even skin health as well, Jen.
Yeah.
When women starve themselves, one of the first things that I see and what they actually complain about is the crepey skin and saggy
Mhm.
skin,
Yeah.
especially when they're in menopause
Mm.
itself. Okay. by eating a high protein breakfast, and you're mitigating that cortisol release, the stress hormone, which is catabolic, as I say. It it causes us to lose collagen in our skin as well, which is not nice. If we not nice. If we mitigate that, then we have healthier skin.
Mhm.
So it's a win-win all round.
Yep. It's your own personal Botox, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. For
Oh,
sure.
well, Marie, is there anything you think we missed today?
I don't think so, but just going back to that hydration that I mentioned,
Yeah.
people we think, oh, it's just water, but it's not actually. You'll find again by hydrating yourself in between meals, don't
Mhm.
drink too close to meal times, but in
Right.
between meals, you will actually have more energy. You will actually have better detoxification because, with more water in our bodies, then our cells can work better,
Yeah.
gut can work better, and our elimination can work better. So that's really something that women should concentrate on again, drinking pure water.
Mhm. And I want to touch on something before we do go, because I'm sure somebody will hear this and say, well, wait a minute, did she just say not to drink at meals? And you and I both know this, but I don't think a lot of people understand this. So explain the importance of, you know, when it's best to drink.
Okay, I mean, obviously you can have a few sips at
Oh,
mealtime.
yes. Yeah.
No
Yeah,
problem
we're
there.
not saying.
But don't gulp down your water at mealtime. I mean, we need
Mhm.
our digestive enzymes
Yep.
to digest our food. Okay, so if we drink and then stop maybe half an hour before our meal, we should be
Mhm.
fine. And then start drinking again, maybe, an hour and a half after our meal. That
Mhm.
way, we're not diluting our digestive enzymes, so they're able to work optimally to break down that food to benefit our bodies.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's fairly easy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be water. If you don't like water, it can be like, you can have herbal teas, fruit infused water, which makes it taste a little bit better, but certainly not those low calorie drinks that have no calories. That doesn't replace water, unfortunately. Pure water does it best.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that is something that, maybe people had never heard of, doing that. And so I'm glad that we were able to share that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if the listeners want to know more about you, Marie, and what you're up to, where can they find more information on you?
Okay, I'm on LinkedIn as Marie Cherrett. I am on Facebook as well, but I prefer Instagram at the moment.
Okay.
So I'm under Your Healthy Hormones, which is the name of my business, on
Mhm.
Instagram. So you'll find plenty of tips and things like that on there to follow. And I post fairly regularly, so that's where to find me. Anyone want to email me? It's marie@yourhealthyhormones.com.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you again for sharing today, Marie. It was a great conversation as usual, and we appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome, Jen. It's lovely to see you again, and thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Fit News podcast, and we will catch you next time.